Afternoon, how are you? Happy Friday. I have to work through the weekend, so the days are indistinguishable in terms of function. So it's pretty comfortable. It's like 54. It's going up and down. It's quite amazing. I'm sure Thomas Jefferson would be commenting on it, perhaps in the context of global warming. I may well mention that in a minute. And there's no wind, but the sun is out, and that picks up spirits. And right now I'm not sitting at a hot word processor, so that feels good too. Now, we talk about watching a canary in a mine. Well, let's think of Trump as a big, fat, orange canary. And what is he doing these days? Well, he's cutting up his clothes, at least the suit he wore when he gave his mugshot, into 2,000 some odd number of pieces. So he hopes people will buy them, and so he is inter vivos supplying relics to his own perfidy. And why would he do that? He's also issued an edition of cards, profiles, and mugshots of his co-conspirators, alleged co-conspirators. What a guy. It suggests to me that he's looking for ways to get money. And that means he needs money. He always needs money, apparently. And what does this say for a possible presidential campaign by a guy who has to cut up his clothes to make money? In the meantime, the courts are kicking him in the head, and within the next 30 days or so, the civil case in New York will decide he owes millions of dollars, pushing him perhaps into bankruptcy or fleeing or trying to disappear in a cloud of delay in court. So if we were thinking of this as a rodeo, I think somebody's throwing a rope around his legs, and they haven't yet tied him up, but he's getting there. It's interesting that he and his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, are in a similar situation, although Rudy seems worse off. Rudy doesn't have a law license, or at least he doesn't have an active one. He owes money to everybody, including his longtime friend and lawyer, Bob Costello, the guy that both Rudy and I served with in the U.S. Attorney's Office. In fact, Bob's office was right next to mine, and I suppose out of loyalty decided to help Rudy, but this is not the same Rudy that we knew as AUSAs, Assistant U.S. Attorneys. So Rudy is prepared to slide past all his friends, and it's $1 million plus that he owes his former colleague in the U.S. Attorney's Office, his current lawyer. And at a time when the women he defamed are asking for $40+ million from him. So getting a long line of creditors for Rudy Giuliani. Now, how does he afford to defend himself? I guess he could defend himself. There are very few people who can carry off that assignment. Clarence Darrow was one. And there have been others, but I don't think Rudy is that guy. In fact, he's been away from the practice of law so long, on the few appearances he's made some errors, shall we say. So both Trump and Rudy seem to face bankruptcy proceedings, despair, and a shame that doesn't seem to affect them in any way. They're not like you and me. I forget who I was with the other day at the Soil and Water Conservation meeting, and this woman is so responsible that when a police car did a U-turn, she was convinced that she must have done something wrong, and she was going to be stopped, although she had no idea what she had done wrong, if she'd done anything wrong. So that's not Rudy, and that's not Trump, that's for sure. Now, switching to bad news, COP28, the environmental gathering, is kind of patting itself on the back for some of its language, but not exactly explaining how it's going to do anything about it. And if you need markers, that is dollars and cents marker, then boy, the light here is tremendous. Look at this. Can you see that? That's why I like walking out here. The dollars and cents marker is we can't afford to increase the world to 1.5 degrees centigrade, which is about 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit. And well, my North Pole guiding star in this business has been Dr. Hansen for a long time. Jim Hansen has told the world, before it believed any of it, that we were on a bad path since the Industrial Revolution in terms of the gases that were going to compromise our planet's ability to sustain increased warmth. And now we have serious global warming. And Hansen is saying that 1.5% centigrade is deader than a doornail. In other words, we're going to blow through that number and things are going to get worse. And our best efforts will be to find ways to suppress that number as time goes on. But there doesn't seem to be anybody who's prepared to put skin in the game to make that possible. And so that's a life and death struggle. And I saw a picture of a woman, and the situation was so bad with the heat that she had contrived her own shower, having gotten the water. And it's both, I don't know, it's like you're invading her intimacy and you enjoy the pleasure that she's having, and yet you're anxious for the condition that prompts her to have to do this, and that's not going to go away soon, and that people will suffer and some will even die because of it. I'll remember to post that picture when I put this up on Twitter. So that's, from time to time, I've tried to submit movie ideas and writing ideas to different entities. And in the process, I haven't really been accepted for those things. But in the process, what I did learn was that the people who do these projects, they don't get a reaction from the public. The public's reaction, not all of it obviously, we're talking about it, but the public's reaction is to ignore it. It's not happening now, but it is happening now, and people are suffering now, and they're going to suffer more, and at some point it's going to be, well, irresistible and too late to do anything about it. So that's the terrible thing about global warming. We have so many people who want to believe it doesn't happen. We have so many people deceiving others that it's not happening. There is objective evidence, but people have become so existential unless they're standing there watching an iceberg fall apart in Antarctica, they don't believe anything's happening. If their house isn't burning down, if the flood's not coming through their state, if they're anxious about dying because of exposure to the heat, all of these things prompt no more than, oh, we should have done something about that, and then they do nothing again. So that's right up there with our, I don't know, whatever our top 5 concerns are: war, our government, the environment, and the hunger, people who don't have homes to live in, those kinds of things. Now, for you guys out there and gals who have rediscovered pot after experiencing the 60s or whenever, you should know that NIH says if you're pregnant, pot's not a good idea. So, just passing that along. The Supreme Court also wants to is considering putting restrictions on how you get the over-the-counter drug. What is it, mifepristone? I think that's how you say it. And why don't they just butt out? They're not doctors, and you know, when the objection is religious and not medical and not coming from peer-reviewed medical analysis, well then keep out of it. We've already made a mess of, people we label as druggers because they're fighting pain, and people who have mental health problems, they have a whole bunch of adjectives for them that's unfair. And so this is kind of what we're dealing with in America and the world, I suppose. We prefer to discriminate and not have anything to do with the problems that exist, and all of a sudden we're stuck in quicksand and being pulled down ourselves. I don't know. There was in school we had this notion that we were supposed to put our shoulder to the task, and I remember as clear as a bell, both in grammar school and high school, to beware of the thinking of let George do it. Somebody else will take care of it. Well, somebody else may take care of it, and if you're taking care of it, then there's more than one person taking care of it. Now, those of you who want robot cars, you may have learned from Tesla, who has discovered its autopilot is not working, at least the way people are using it. And I'd be interested in a report on that. I mean, how many of you would get in a car and trust it to take you somewhere without you paying any attention? I don't think we're there yet. I think it's a great idea, and I think we may get there. But ordinary citizens trusting the system are not the best way to get there. And what kind of citizen gets in a car and says, well, I don't have to drive this, it'll drive itself? Why did I pay Tesla so much money if it can't drive itself? Maybe there's some who think that. There's another more local story where I live, but I think it's becoming a national story. And it's about these data centers. They're ugly. They inhale enormous energy. They suck up the water out of the earth underneath them, probably compromising your well or other water sources in the rivers and streams around. And all they have to do, the principles behind these projects, is pat a local county supervisor on the hindquarters, and they'll jump through hoops to make it happen. So, not that far from where I am. Well, pretty far. I mean, I won't see it, I won't hear it. But this is a phenomenon that's in Virginia, but it'll be elsewhere. They're going to build 34 data centers, and it's going to take, how many acres is this? 2,100 acres, and it's cost $40 billion to make. And the local government says, oh, great, and we'll get a percentage of that, because that will be the deal, and that'll take care of the very expensive educational system that we have here. And that's just bad government. Bad government. I've always been concerned, and I know some of you may disagree with this, but I've always been concerned about those who feel comfortable with nuclear saying, oh, there's no hothouse greenhouse emanations to worry about. Well, that's fine, except for the fact that there's radiation to worry about. And we've seen trouble over the years, and they'll tell us it's cheaper and we'll be sucked into something else. But is there enough renewables? Sunshine and wind and thermal, those things. Well, Not if we're going to insist on living the way we do. And I guess people don't want a simpler living, but what's wrong with it? There are ways to live a life that is good and safe against those unforeseen things that are not either good or safe. But a baseline way of living is a better way to live than the contrary. So those are my thoughts as I wander through my cathedral of trees. So I look forward to talking to you. I hope tomorrow. Bye-bye.